President Trump went after our NATO allies over their purchases of Russian oil. Watch this.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one?
Interior Secretary Doug Burgum joins me now. Mr. Secretary, how do we convince world leaders to pivot away from Russian oil? Because if they did that, it would cost them dearly, wouldn't it?
Well, President Trump has been talking about this back even when he was campaigning. He talked about energy diplomacy. It's like, let's sell energy to our friends and allies so they stop buying it from our adversaries, those that are Russia funding a war against Ukraine, buying from Iran under the Biden administration, which was the funding terrorism. But what we need, Stuart, is we're doing a great job in the U.S. building export facilities. We're exporting a record amount of LNG to Europe. Secretary Chris Wright and I were just over in Europe 2 weeks ago for Gas Tech, meeting with over 20 different energy ministers from across Europe. All of them want to buy from the U.S., but they became dependent on Russian infrastructure. There are pipelines coming from Russia into Eastern Europe. We've got to help the Europeans understand that as a long-term provider, the United States, a secure, a trusted supplier of energy, they've got to build infrastructure. And some countries are stepping up. Italy and Greece doing a great job of building import facilities for LNG. Now we've got to get the pipelines to take those into Southeast Europe so they can stop buying off of the Russian pipelines.
Next one, sir. President Trump says climate change is a scam. You've got to watch this.
This climate change, it's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong.
Mr. Secretary, you run the Interior Department, and he had strong words there about climate change. Do you see climate change essentially as a con job?
Well, I think President Trump does what he's always done, which is he speaks openly and speaks truthfully, which is why the world loves him. But we've heard for the climate extremists for the past 20 years, the existential threat to the planet is 1 degree of climate change in the year 2100. President Trump, very clear-eyed, he understood the existential threat was Iran getting a nuclear weapon that they would use against us, and the other is losing the AI arms race to China. We're in a race on who can produce the most electricity. That's what the existential threat is, and President Trump wants to get us and our allies focused again on that process. And so it's fantastic that he's showing that leadership. And expensive intermittent sources like wind and solar. Germany spent $500 billion, 500 billion, Stuart, going down their green dream, and now they produce 20% electricity at 3 times the cost. No one will build an AI factory in Germany because who's going to build where the cost of electricity is 3 times as high? Yep. Energy security equals national security, and right now that equals plentiful, abundant electricity. President Trump understands that. He's trying to get our European allies to understand it.
And the supply of electricity in America longer term rests squarely on nuclear and nat gas. 30 seconds.
Well, had a great groundbreaking earlier this week in Oklahoma at the Idaho National Lab. Oklahoma starting a micro-nuclear reactor that uses spent fuel. That's a new technology that's going to be fantastic. And right now, the U.S. can provide so much LNG. The Alaskan LNG pipeline, which is a priority for the president, to our Pacific allies, out of the Gulf of America to our European allies. The U.S. can supply the world. We can bring peace abroad and prosperity to home with LNG.
Doug Burgum, thanks very much for joining us, as always. Come back and see us anytime you like. Thank you, sir.